Okay, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody is feeling well and inoculated. It's a little bit after 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific time where I am, which can only mean one thing. It's time for another episode of The Yard. The Yard is a production of Commissary Club, which is the first social network for 70 million Americans who have a criminal record. My name is Richard Bronson. I am the founder and CEO of Commissary Club, as well as 70 Million Jobs, which is the national employment platform for folks with records. Normally, you'd be seeing two of my friends joining me as co-hosts. Tonight, we're giving them the night off. That's Seth and Divine. So tonight it's just me and our amazing guest. We also, of course, have the wonderful Adrienne Hatter, who sort of manages things behind the scenes. So I'm joined tonight by two amazing women. Before we get started, a couple of quick housekeeping items. And I apologize for those of you who have been with us before because we talk about the same thing over and over. On the Yard, like Commissary Club, our goal is to connect people ultimately. And in that connection, let them be available to one another, to help one another, to serve as role models, to even inspire. And I have a feeling we're all going to feel inspiration tonight. Our goal is that people who don't have a record have an opportunity to see and meet and talk to folks who do and understand that they are far more than a rap sheet, but rather they understand that there's a shared and undeniable humanity to discover. Our goal here is, as much as possible, to give folks who have never done time a taste of what it's like to be incarcerated. Now, everybody who's done time has had different experiences, and depending how long you've been incarcerated and what type of place you've been at and what level of security, all of these, will drive vastly different experiences. So there's certainly no one experience. And that's why we have lots of guests. What we do is we take you out to the yard. Every prison has a yard. And it's a place, generally, it's a big, empty, flat, dusty sort of field. And it's a place that the inmates there have a chance to just connect and hang out and laugh with each other and yell at each other and argue and sometimes share sadness. Out on the yard, you always have to have eyes in the back of your head. And on the yard, typically signs of weakness, things like crying are things you want to avoid doing. We ask you tonight, particularly if you have questions to ask, that we focus not on what brought the person to prison, the crime or their situation, and not to focus either on what they're doing now or how their release was. All of those things are important, certainly, but our focus and our little slice of what we're after here is to focus on the experience in prison. So I ask you that if you have questions or comments, by all means, please share them with us and we'll try to get to them. There's a chat button at the bottom of the screen, but please try to focus on the in-prison part of this whole arc. We bring people into the yard from time to time, people who have experiences they want to share or questions they want to ask. And I ask that if in fact you would like to be part of the conversation, by all means, contact Adrian using the chat feature on the side and let her know. And we'll try to get you in here. And again, please just sort of focus on the in-prison experience, questions you may have, or your own experience. Next, we do something every time, and it's an exercise, and that we're going to do again. And I ask you, if you haven't done this before with us, to trust me. And if you have, continue trusting me. The first thing I would ask everybody here to do is just please close your eyes and take a deep breath. Close your eyes and just breathe in deeply and let out your breath slowly. And, you know, for most of us, it's been a long day. Sort of add a little air into your brain and let your mind wander wherever it takes you. There are problems that we all experience. Some of them, including legal problems, come upon us fast. They're almost like it's a tsunami, and they can devastate us. Other times they take longer to unfold, and in a way you can sort of watch them in slow motion as these problems are slowly derailing your carefully planned life. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Some people here I know own businesses, maybe a big one, maybe a small one, doesn't matter. And hopefully this business has been doing well. Coming out of the coronavirus, I think a lot of businesses are going to start doing very well. When things were going well, the business gave you and your family a very nice lifestyle. You know, you would agree, life is good, and you're smart enough to acknowledge that awareness every day. Maybe you're like me and you're a foodie. You like nothing more than taking your friends out and family out to the latest new restaurant and experimenting and finding out about it. And when you're with your friends, the bill comes, you're always the first one to grab for that bill because, well, things have been going well. Life is good. Now, as a business person, every quarter you're meeting with your accountant and you go over your business and your personal finances. And you've gotten it all ready for your meeting with your accountant. You provide all of your business receipts. You want to make sure, of course, that every business expense you've had, you're going to be able to write off on your income tax. There's nothing wrong with that. Smart business. So you put together these receipts. And probably, if you're like a lot of people, you're going to throw in some receipts that were for some of those personal dinners you had with your family, your friends. You may even toss in like a family trip. Now you're calling it a business trip. Now, everybody does that, right? I mean, it's not the worst thing you could do. Your accountant probably even said to you, I remember my accountant telling me, one for them, meaning the IRS, one for you. Except this year was a little bit different because this year you received an unexpected letter from the IRS. And it seems that as part of their routine monitoring of your account, they came upon some questions regarding some business expenses that they want a further explanation on. In fact, they've decided for the first time to audit you. Now, it turns out they're not just interested in those business expenses, but in the past year, you also acquired a building and you submitted a bank loan application. You never thought anybody would actually be looking at this after the fact, you know, and maybe you fudged it a little bit. Everybody fudges. Fudging, how bad can the word fudging be even? How serious could it be? Well, it turns out the IRS agent who you're talking to and who's auditing your account thinks it's pretty serious. And as a result, I'm sad to tell you, but your life's never going to be the same again. Now, fast forward a couple of years later, and just imagine, still with your eyes closed, that you're just waking up from your sleep in the morning. And you wake up and you realize you're just lying in a cot. And if you look to the front, you notice that there are bars on your door. And if you look to the left, not 6 inches away from your head, there is a stainless steel toilet that you slept right next to. The toilet's attached to a sink. And on the other side of you, inches away, there's someone else who's also waking up. This person, sad to say, is coughing and wheezing terribly as they're waking up. And it goes through your mind that you're breathing the same exact air as this person. And this person, well, it could just be that this person has contracted the coronavirus. The truth is you're in prison and it hits you head on. You're in prison for tax fraud and you're going to be there for another 3 years. That's what your life is and how it's spiraled out of control. You're not a bad person, but that's where you are now. Now, once a day, they will let you out. The prison guards will let you out onto the yard once a day. And you can get some fresh air. And if it's a nice day, you can get some sunshine. And depending on what you're interested in, maybe you'll toss a football around, maybe you'll go work out a little bit. But probably what you do normally every day, is you'll find your friends on the yard and you'll just get together with them. And you'll just be with them the way friends are with friends. And these moments are really pretty special for you, because for these moments, if only for these moments, you're no longer a number, you're no longer an animal being treated as an animal by prison guards, but for this moment, you are once again a human being. And you could imagine how life was before it all spiraled out of control. So I'm going to take you out onto the yard now. And on the yard, there's somebody that I want you to meet. Her name is Sabrina Butler-Smith. Sabrina, welcome. We are so proud to have you on the yard. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I am great, and I am thrilled and honored that you would be with us here today. Yours is an amazing story, and we were chatting before, and I want to make sure I get the story right. So please make sure you tell me if I miss something. Back in the late 80s, you were a teenager, and I think you were 17, and you had a son.
Yes.
Whose name was Walter.
Yes.
And one day you noticed Walter had stopped breathing. And like any mother, I'm sure you were horrified and shocked and panicked, but nonetheless, you had your wits about you and you tried to perform CPR to get young Walter back breathing again, right? And you were probably applying compression to his chest, I imagine, or, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And sad to say, Walter wasn't revived. Walter didn't start breathing again. So you did what any responsible adult would do. You grabbed Walter and you rushed to the hospital. That's right so far? Do I have that basically okay?
Some of it, yes.
Tell me what I missed.
I wasn't the one who did the CPR first. Somebody told me what to do because I didn't know how. So but the way she told me, I applied adult CPR to him. He was only 9 months old. Yeah, he was only 9 months.
And adult CPR is sort of rough and you got to be strong and you got to push hard and whatever. Yeah. So you get to the hospital, and the hospital emergency room, they don't have success in reviving him, and poor Walter expires, which is unimaginably tragic right there. But I guess the story just got more and more awful because somehow or another, at a certain point, they came to blame you. Yes. That not only were you not successful in reviving Walter, but now all of a sudden they claim that you were guilty of murdering him. Is that correct?
Yes.
At 17, you just lost your baby, and now they've accused you of murdering your child.
Right.
And I imagine things happen pretty fast at that point,
Yes.
because you were tried and convicted of murder and sentenced to death.
Yes.
So they sent you to prison.
Yes.
And ultimately you did 6.5 years in prison, of which almost 3 years was on death row, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just can't imagine going through any of this. Tell me, if you can, what was it like to be sent to prison as a teenager, having just lost your child, grieving this terrible, terrible event, and at the same time being locked up in a prison, death row? I mean, could you even describe that to us?
Well, when I was sentenced, and by the time I made it to death row, I was 19. When I got there to the prison, they had me shackled, and I had never seen inside of a prison, had never experienced anything like that in my life. Going through the gates and stuff, I was scared to death because these are tall gates. The officer had his gun and he took it out, he put it inside the little gate, the first gate, and then they closed it behind us. Then we went in the second gate and we went into like a little garage. This is in Mississippi. And when we got in the garage, they made us all get out of the van we were in, and we had to create a walk because I was shackled, leg irons and around my waist. And when we got inside of the building, they started yelling at us, get up against the wall, get up against the wall, you know, and they were saying, give us your name, scream out your name and give us your social security number. So we had to holler that out, you know, and they was rushing us through like cattle. And I was scared to death. I didn't know what to expect. And they was like, you're condemned. So you're going to get a red jumpsuit. So immediately the female officer, they took me into this room and they started making me strip, and they put bug spray in my hair. They took all my clothes, they fingerprinted me and stuff. And I was humiliated because I had never been through anything like this before. And then I had to sit in this like bullpen for like 2 hours before they got the paperwork ready to transfer me to maximum security. So when I got ready to go to maximum security, I had to walk from intake to maximum security with one of the correction officers. And he said, you see those inmates out there on the yard? He said, we tell them when to go to sleep. He said, we tell them what to eat. He said, but you will die here. And before I got to maximum security, I was a basket case because, you know, I didn't know what was going on. This was crazy to me, you know. When I got there, they put me in a 6x9 cell and slammed the door. I stayed in that cell 2 years, 9 months. Sometimes I had rats in my cell. I had ants on my tray. But the most grueling part for me was to be innocent because I didn't commit a crime.
Now, everybody in prison says they're innocent, right?
Everybody. And nobody believed me, but I was innocent. And when sitting there like that, I didn't have anything in my cell besides the bed and the metal toilet. But the thing that got me the most was that my death date was fastly approaching. They sentenced me March the 13th of 1990, and my death date was July the 2nd of 1990. So when July the 2nd came, Richard, I paced the floors. I listened for every chain, every sound, because
you thought that day you were going to be executed.
Yes, because nobody told me that the state had to exhaust all state remedies. My attorneys, nobody told me that, you know, that they couldn't actually carry out a death sentence, you know, until I did all of my state remedies. Nobody told me. And I was crying. I was scared to death.
So let's go back before that. You come into prison. Were you, in fact, you said you lost it at a certain point. Were you sobbing? Were you
Yes.
you know, overcome with fear and grief,
I was
as I would
scared to
imagine.
death. I was scared. I was
You were
very
scared.
scared.
You
Yeah.
were. Were you at all conscious of or telling yourself to maintain at least the appearance of someone strong, you know, versus weak?
No.
Did you have a sense of not being, you know, being held prey by a predator? Was there any of that consideration?
I had it some because before I got to prison, I had to fight every day almost in the county jail because I was charged with killing a child. So when you have a case like that, you really have to watch your back. And a lot of people call me child killer in the county jail and monster and this kind of stuff. And I had to protect myself. I had to fight to stay alive. So I kind of knew, but that didn't stop me from being scared because I had never been to prison before in my life. And, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I just knew I was alone in this.
What, you had an attorney? Was this a public defender, I would imagine?
Two public offenders. One of them was drunk during the whole trial. I wasn't able to take the stand in my own defense. I had mostly an all-white jury. They didn't call one witness in my case, not one.
Really?
Not even the girl that did the CPR first.
Not a doctor who said, yes, the bruising is normal under these circumstances?
Everybody sided with the district attorney at first.
Why is that? Why would they so naturally do that?
I just feel like they knew what they was going to do before they saw me. Because here I am, this young Black kid coming from a poverty area, and they just, the district attorney was 26. He was overzealous and he wanted to make a name for himself, and I fit the bill. That's exactly what happened. It was racially motivated, and that's the reason why that happened to me.
Yeah, I don't think most people recognize, they assume that there's a judge at the top of the criminal justice system making sure that there's justice.
No,
and when in fact, it's an assistant district attorney or an assistant U.S. attorney who's 20 years old, trying to make their bones, wanting to rack up an impressive record, that they're tough on crime. And, it's just absolutely amazing. Did you, when you were, I imagine a lot of it, things were a blur for you, and what's going on here? It's almost surreal in how gruesome the whole thing is. Did you at any point sort of take stock and say, eventually they're going to realize they made a mistake? Did you have that confidence?
Not at first. Not at first. I was very angry because I was trying to figure out, why was this happening to me when I tried all I could to save my son? I couldn't figure out why this so-called justice system would take someone that came to them for help and called me a murderer. I just couldn't understand that because I had an older child too. My oldest son, he was almost 2. So I just couldn't figure out why they were doing this to me.
And they just, I mean, it's as simple as they needed to have a scapegoat, and you're in Mississippi and you're a Black young woman, and therefore that's the beginning and the end of it.
That was the beginning and the end. And I had been there alone since I was 14. So I didn't have anybody in my corner. My parents, nobody was there. Then they talked to me and interrogated me without any parents. I was 17 and I didn't have anybody in there. And at the time, I didn't know anything about the law. When they said I had the right to remain silent, I thought that meant be quiet until spoken to. I had never had a brush with the law. I didn't know anything about. I was a kid. I didn't know, what I was supposed to do or what I wasn't supposed to do. And they just clearly took advantage.
And to say nothing of, at the same time, you're going through this, you're grieving for this terrible, terrible loss as a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah. And the sad part about it, by me being incarcerated that long, I never knew what my son died from until I got the second set of attorneys who were
How long was that before you learned?
The 5th year. I spent 6.5 years. I did not find out till the 5th year of what my son actually died from.
Wow.
My son had heart problems, kidney problems, and chronic bowel syndrome. It was nothing that I had done to cause his death. Nothing. And like I was telling you earlier, I have an 18-year-old daughter that has the same disease now.
Right. This is maybe a terrible question to ask, or, you know, I don't know what's right, honestly, you know, in this conversation. Did you have the opportunity to visit Walter's grave before they took you to prison?
Didn't find out where he was even buried until 2 years after I got out. I never got a chance to go to the funeral. I didn't know anything, nothing. Didn't know nothing.
Do you know where Walter is buried now? Can you visit him?
I do now. No, I can't visit him. I can't visit him. Matter of fact, I'm fighting the Mississippi now because I found out that his death certificate still states that he was murdered. And so I'm fighting them because I found out that one day a guy was walking down the street. I got an attorney, and one guy was walking down the street and he saw an ambulance service, and he decided to buy this ambulance service. And he is the one who signed my son's death certificate. Now, he doesn't have any medical license whatsoever, but his name is on my son's death certificate. And then Mississippi at the time did not have the money to do a proper autopsy report. There's no medical slides, no nothing. But yet it's still, I'm on death row for murder. And so now we're having to fight them again. And I've been out almost 30 years now.
And you still have to fight?
Yes. For them to change the death certificate.
There's that, like, this presumption that you're still guilty.
To me, what I feel like.
Yeah, well, that's the way they're treating you. How else could you feel? So you're brought to prison. How did the guards treat you? What were they saying to you initially?
Well, I really didn't have a hard time with most of the guards because they were female. They came down, and the only questions I got asked was, why do you smile every time we see you? And my answer to them was, I didn't do anything wrong, so I don't have a reason not to smile. Even though I was going through this, I still had a smile on my face. You know, I was angry to myself, but when they saw me, I maintained my smile because I know that I didn't commit a crime. I didn't kill my son.
But couldn't some people, seeing you smile in that situation, might someone look at you and say, she's nuts, she's smiling here?
Probably.
And how could someone be?
I probably, but I didn't care. You know, Richard, I got to the point, you know, at first it was a hard thing for me. I was very angry. Like I said, for 3 years, I was mad. But I got to the point to say that nobody knew that I was angry. They couldn't see my anger. It was hurting me. So I had to learn how to switch that around. So I started writing while I was in prison. I would just sit there and make scenarios, you know what I'm saying, and start writing everything that went down in my life, the things that I learned. I started writing a journal. And that's how I kind of kept myself going. You know what I'm saying? And reading every law book that I could find to read so that I could be prepared when I went back to court to understand my case. I just couldn't sit there and I'll drive myself insane. You know, I couldn't do that. I had to fight. I started writing letters to anybody I thought would listen.
Okay. By the way, you know, some of the folks are writing comments as you're speaking. And Marie, for example, you know, she said, you were invisible to them. I'm so sorry. You know, and I think everybody here feels so sorry for what you went through, as Elizabeth mentioned, and grieving, like while all of this is going on, while you're, you know, you weren't guilty, and in fact you're going through this this terrible grief again as a teenage girl. I mean, my God, who's prepared for any of this?
No, I wasn't prepared, but I had to question God, and I started asking them questions about why. And I had to search myself. You know what I mean? I knew that I didn't kill him. I know that. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what kept me going too. And I know that I knew it was going to eventually come to an end. I knew that. I just
You
didn't know
did.
when. Yeah, I
You
knew that.
believe that, though. Were
I did.
you a religious person going into this?
I was, but not as religious as I became. I was. But when I
So
ended up with the two attorneys that I got in the second trial, that is what really gave me more inspiration. You know what I'm saying? I
yeah,
started to get better with that.
Susan asks, it's an interesting question. You had you had other kids in addition to Walter at the time, right?
I had one older son. Yes.
An older son. What's his name, if you don't mind me
Danny.
asking?
Danny.
Danny.
Mhm.
So Susan asks, were you able to maintain some kind of relationship with him at this point while you were in prison?
Well, his grandparents had him. Yeah, for a little while. Yes. He's with me now. He's
He
actually
is.
with me right now. Yeah.
Did he know why you were in prison?
Yes, he did. They told him.
They did.
Yeah.
It's just beyond incredible. For people who are just showing up here, we're talking with Sabrina Butler-Smith, an incredibly powerful woman who, as a teenager, lost her infant son, and then she was accused of and found guilty of murdering baby Walter, and she was sent to prison, to death row, where she was given a date where they would be executing her. And up until that exact day, her execution date, she was expecting that day she would be executed. Before we get to that, which is a whole other thing to unpack, that who could possibly even begin to understand what you went through? But you're in this prison. Did you have your own cell, or were you sharing it with someone?
I had my own cell. It was no
Okay.
bigger than your bathroom. I had a 6x9 cell, and that is where I stayed. I had 1 hour yard call and no human contact.
Did you go out into the yard during that 1 hour a day?
Sometimes, but it was like a bullpen. I didn't have no shade or anything like that. It was just you stand out there like a dog in a cage. I just couldn't. I stayed depressed a lot when I first, went in. So I didn't go outside much. Until they threatened me. But I stayed.
What do you mean they threaten you? They threaten you that you had to leave?
Right. They threatened me that I had to come out of the cell or they would send me to, like the quack doctors to, shoot you up. They believed in giving you crazy medicine and all that stuff when you didn't interact like they wanted you to. And I wasn't going to let them do that to me. So, I did go out, but, that was only because they threatened me.
So if I understand their thinking, and maybe if you understand it, you're sitting there awaiting your execution, but their biggest concern is that you keep your head together so maybe you don't commit suicide. Is that
Right.
what their fear is?
Yes. Yes. That was their
Jeez.
main reason. They wanted me to stay healthy so they could kill me. That's crazy, but that's the truth.
Do you
They don't want
believe?
you losing your mind when you're on death row because they want to get a chance to do, what they sentenced you to. That's
Okay,
why they
so let me
threatened.
ask you this question that normally I would probably maybe more appropriate to ask us at the end, but I have to ask, do you believe that executing someone is ever acceptable?
To be honest with you, Richard, I really don't. Because I don't feel like we have the right to take somebody's redemptive period. You can't see inside somebody's soul. I feel like if somebody committed a crime and it's murder, yes, life sentence is a death sentence in itself because you're not safe in prison like people think you are. I had to fight. If you go to prison for crimes like that, you got to watch your back. Why do that when you know you're not sure that you got the right thing. The reason why I say that is because if you go on a case and somebody done killed somebody, all right, you got detectives, you got police officers, people taking pictures, everybody and their mama is going on this crime scene. You cannot tell me that a person is not going to make a mistake and touch the wrong thing, walk the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? Because we're human. As long as you have a human element surrounding the death penalty, I do not think we have the right to say who lives and who dies. There's no way. I don't feel like that's right. I feel like a person should serve their life without parole. If you do something, yes, you're supposed to serve time. You know what I mean? But they're not applying the death penalty like they say. They're not. It's not being applied like it's right.
It's just too incredible. So you're in your cell 23 hours a day and sometimes more because you often didn't want to go out. Were you having any, you mentioned that there was violence. I guess that was when you were in the county lockup prior to going to prison?
Right.
Was that where you
Yes.
mentioned several times that you had a fight? Is that where that occurred?
Yes, in the county jail before I went to prison.
Okay, so and these are other women, I imagine.
Yeah.
And what was, why did that happen? Was it
just picking on me? I mean, just people picking on me. You know, we had bullies. You know, you have bullies in everything you do. People come in and they think you're weak and they just try to pick at you and you to see, where your strength at. And once they knew what my case was, then they, Joan, you call Joan it, and call me baby killer and murderer and that kind of thing, and so or come in my cell and push me or hit, and I had to protect myself. Grow up fast. I had to grow up fast.
You had to grow up fast, really. Did you try to explain or convince them that they were wrong?
Yeah, I did, but they said everybody say that. We don't want to hear that. Cuss me out, stuff like that. So I stopped after a while. And when you get to prison, there's a sign on the wall that says, keep your nose on your own face. Don't ask anybody about their case or anything like that. So I got to the point where I stopped talking. I just shut down completely. I stopped talking to people, period. Because, I mean, it's a lot of manipulation in prison. People are not your friend like you think they are.
Now, a lot of times we talk with folks and they talk about being confronted with a very, with a racially divided environment, and where the Black folks are only allowed to be with each other, and the white folks and the Mexicans, whatever. The violence that you dealt with, was it anything like that, or was it just generally nobody liked you because of what they thought your crime was?
It was just generally nobody, because I was in the county jail. So everybody was, sometimes it was a 12-man cell. They would make it hold 30, 40 women. So a bunch of women together, we can't live together no way. That's ridiculous. Trying to put 40 women in a 12-man cell. So you're bound to have issues. And that's the way it was. And people had charges, and they, felt like I said, we had bullies.
Wow.
And I was the youngest.
And you were the youngest?
Yes.
Did you have any experience fighting before then? I mean, was that part of your life?
That's what I said. I had to grow up. No, I was a scary child. So when I went in there, that changed. I had to fight. I had to stay alive. Because I mean, it's you or them. And that, if you want to live, you're going to protect yourself. They would try to take my canteen, that kind of stuff, steal from you. If you didn't fight back, then they take everything you got. You got to protect yourself. Jail ain't no joke. And if people think it is, I'm sorry. I don't know where they got it from. Like I told you earlier, I don't care if you put water beds in there. I don't never want to see the inside of a prison or jail anymore. Not even to visit. I will write you, but I am not coming. I don't care. That's why I tell my kids right now, do not get in any trouble, because mama is not coming. Sorry. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, well, if there's any justice in the, well, okay, I was about to say if there's any justice in the world. Do you think there's any justice in the world?
Yeah, I do, but it's not like it's not handed out like it should be. And I was a juvenile and they did not segregate me. No, ma'am. Somebody saw that question. No, they didn't segregate me. I was charged with capital murder. So that, I sat in the county jail and they waited till I turned 18 before I went to trial.
Hmm. So
no,
when you
they
got
didn't accept the plea. Somebody asked me, did I accept a plea bargain? I wasn't going to accept a plea bargain because I didn't do anything wrong. And it was never offered. He went for the death penalty right off the bat.
So in fact, I believe the Supreme Court of Mississippi, I think, ruled that there was prosecutorial misconduct in your case.
Yes.
And not only that, but the forensic use of the evidence was mishandled. Yeah. I mean, the case was a total mess, right?
Yeah. Yeah. When the case was done, Walters, like I was telling you earlier, his autopsy report was not done right. They didn't have enough money at the time to do one. So they didn't do anything like they should have done in the case.
Okay. There are organizations that frequently get involved in egregious cases or high profile cases. Did any organization reach out to you at any point?
Clive Stafford Smith, who is an Englishman who came from England, was reviewing cases over here, capital cases and death penalty cases, and became interested in coming over to help fight death penalty cases. And my case was one that he chose to fight when he knew that Mississippi had a serious issue in doing things like that. So he came over and he was called once the first attorney in my first trial was sad because he knew he didn't do his job. So he called Clive and asked him, would he help him fight my case? So he did do something in the end to help me. And that's how I ended up with good attorneys.
When you got to prison, you had a date that was set for your execution, right?
Yes.
How much time was that from the time you got to prison to that date that you thought you were going to be executed? How much? You mentioned it was not a long period of time.
No, it was a couple of months. I got sentenced March the 13th of 1990, and my death date was July the 2nd of 1990.
From March to July.
Right.
So I honestly, I don't know that much about capital cases and how they're handled, but my impression was always that it's a long period of time, and that gives the courts, the opportunity to hear, appeals, even to go to the Supreme Court ultimately. But I mean, it sounds like your case, they were like rushing it through as quickly as they could.
They were, and that's why my mom got in the news media to try to get a stay of execution, because we really thought that that's what they were trying to do. So when she managed to get a stay of execution for me, and for them to do the case.
But so you're in the prison just for a couple of months, and I don't know, did you have a calendar on the wall where you circled the date or something? I mean, were you very focused on that?
I just knew when my date was. I mean, he told me I had to stand before the judge, and he told me. And, so I knew before I got there.
And you really believed that it was going to go down that way, huh?
I did. I was scared. I did. I really thought I was going to die.
Did you know how you would be executed?
Lethal injection.
They say that is the most inhumane way, because they typically use phenobarbital, and it can take hours for people. It's not like they're immediately, stop breathing and they're dead. It can be this I've read about cases where poor people have taken hours to die at, incredible pain and distress. What do you think about when that's hanging out there? I mean, what can you think about?
There's nothing really you can do. But try to just, I don't know. I did a lot of praying. That's all I could do.
All you could do.
What else was there for me being in that cell like that. There was nothing I could do besides go crazy. And I wasn't about to do that. I just had to have a strong belief to know that God was in this. Because when I stood before that judge and he said, we sentence you to die by lethal injection, and may God have mercy on your soul, I told him then, I said, no, may God have mercy on your soul. Because you guys don't know what you just did. That's what I said. That's the last thing I said. Soul. Right.
Wow. And yet when people would see you, you'd be smiling.
Right.
I apologize for some of these questions because honestly, Sabrina, I have no preparation. I don't know that anybody could. You had to go through it, but if I stop and think about this, and this is me, not you, it's devastating. I can't even imagine a human being going through what you went through, all the while grieving about, as a teenager while this is happening. I mean, did they sit down and talk to you about a last meal? Is that a real thing that happens?
It is a real thing, but they didn't talk to me about that. I didn't make it to that. God granted. I basically, with me, I think what was going on with me while I was on death row at the time was that I was really concerned what happened to my son. And that bothered me more than anything because I was trying to figure out what happened. I never knew. Nobody told me what he died from. So I sat on death row all those years not knowing what my son died from until Clive took my case and came and talked to me. They didn't tell me anything, not nothing. So that was disheartening for me because, I couldn't go to his funeral. I didn't know anything. And that tore me apart because, I couldn't talk to anybody to tell me what was going
on. I just can't imagine. All I want to do is hug you right now, honestly. Hi, Marie. Marie, you wearing a apropos shirt, choose happiness. Hard to imagine making that choice under these circumstances, but thank you for joining us, Marie. What do you think about this?
My heart hurts. Sabrina, my heart really is hurting for you right now. I've been in the profession. I just retired from corrections for 30 years. And I was the division chief of inmate services and specifically work with women to empower women. And I can't imagine having a juvenile in my care going through this. I was at a county facility. I have all types of questions. And one question for you is, you probably was going through postpartum depression, in addition to grieving, in addition to just being blown away. How did you manage to survive in an adult facility in a pod? Because you weren't even in your own cell in a county. You were in a what we call pods with grown women, and we don't do that. You were a child. So I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'm so glad you're here with us and you survived. But how did you make it through this? How did you manage?
I know by the grace of God. I know by the grace of God. That's the only thing I could, because I went in scared, but I quickly learned that I couldn't do that. Not in the county jail. No. I mean, we had incidents where they were breaking razors and all that. They had women fighting against one another. And they picked on me a lot because I was the youngest. Yes. They picked on me and they was taking my stuff, like my canteen and stuff like that. And I got tired. I had to fight back.
You should have been protected.
That's how I managed to survive. I had to fight back.
How did you have a case manager? Did you have someone come in and talk?
Not in the county. No, that county jail was not like that at all. They just put you in there, lock the door and go on about your business. We had problems getting females getting sanitary napkins and that type of stuff. I mean, they were cruel. They didn't care nothing about, your health and strength. If you started fighting, then you go to the hole, what's called the hole. So I was in the hole a lot. And the hole is nothing but a concrete room with a hole in the middle of the floor. I mean,
I
didn't have a choice.
You didn't, but I heard you say that you would never go back, not even if they put a waterbed in there.
No, I'm not going.
And I agree.
Nope.
But if you're still in the same area in Mississippi, have you ever thought about going in and helping the women, developing programs and doing something to give back? Because someone else is probably still going through this.
Well, I'm not in Mississippi anymore. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. The
Yes.
girl that was on death row with me, I still help her. I write letters to her. But right now I'm in the process of starting a halfway house to help exoneree women and ex-offender women.
Yes.
Because it's a much needed program here. We have programs for men, but not enough for women. So that is what I'm doing right now. Besides my speaking events, because I do a lot of this, travel a lot. I've been out since 95 and I've been doing speaking. I started in 96 and I've been doing it ever since. And I work with this organization called Witness to Innocence, and it's all death row exonerees. And that's what we do. And so far we've got the death penalty abolished in 23 states already. So
all right, we're going to talk about that at the end.
I'm doing a lot.
So
Still doing a lot.
All right, thank you so much.
Sure
thank you, Richard.
Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us, and stick around. And if you have another question, please ask. Did you have people on the outside who were sort of that you could stay in touch with or speak to or write to? Did you have friends? Or it almost sounds like you went through this almost completely on your own. What was it like?
Well, at first, I was alone until my mom found out that Mississippi had put me on death row, and she called me. She found the number to the prison and she called me and she said, Sabrina, I want to ask you one question. She said, did you kill your child? And when she asked that question, I said, Mama, I didn't do it. She said, that's all I want to know. And from then, my mama became a champion for me out here. And that's the goal that you have to have when you're incarcerated. If you don't have anybody outside on the outside to help you, you're damn, because you need all the help you can get when it's a situation like that.
Were there people who disappointed you, who disappeared, or who were convinced you were guilty and wanted to have nothing to do with you?
Not really. I didn't really have any friends too much when I was out in the first place, because I had been there alone by myself, and I wasn't a big fan of a lot of people, so I didn't really have a problem with that in that area. No.
What about Walter's father? Was he at all involved with any of this?
Yeah, we're friends. We're still friends. Me and him are fighting. We're the ones working on his death certificate right now.
Jeez. So you're in the prison. What was the name of the prison you were in?
Central Correction Facility in Pearl, Mississippi.
Okay. Let's just talk a little bit about like the day-to-day, what life was. What were you wearing? They gave you
red jumpsuit.
Okay.
Red jumpsuit.
And sneakers or flip-flops or what?
Red jumpsuit with sneakers. We had sneakers, and we had one set of boots, one sneaker, 4 red jumpsuits, and then they give you a coat, a thin coat for the winter.
Okay. And you woke up every morning on your own, or there was an announcement? How did that happen?
Well, I mean, we had to get up and stand outside of our door for the count and stuff like that. And the part that I hated was that? I didn't like that because, when we have K9 shakedown and all that, the dogs would come in and pee all over your stuff and jump on top of your mattresses and all that. And they didn't care. You just had to clean it up. They would let them ramble through your canteen and all that kind of stuff. And you had to stand at attention on the outside of your door. You know what I mean? And they just come in and pick at you. And most of the time it was all men. It was never women. It was all men just came in and, just tore our stuff up and just did whatever,
Whatever.
I hated that.
Yeah, I can imagine. What did you have? Did you go to breakfast somewhere, or was it brought to you?
Everything was brought to me. Yeah, everything was brought to me. I couldn't go to the, to the lunch cafeteria like population. I was in maximum security.
What typically would they bring to you for breakfast?
Stuff I don't know what it was. We would have some type of funny looking meat. I don't know what that was. It wasn't food. Half the time I didn't eat any of it. I mean, I called it mystery meat because I didn't know what it was. We had slop from Monday to whatever we had, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They'd mix all that together and throw it on some rice on Friday. So I called it slop. I don't know what it was. Oh my God. It was horrible.
You're remembering it now, huh? Yeah, I remember.
You don't want that food. You don't want it.
Did you, when I was in prison, and lots of our guests, talk about how they had the opportunity, there were microwaves and they can go to the commissary and buy something. You had none of that available,
well,
right?
We did have a chance to get commissary, and that's mostly what I ate from my commissary. Okay. And how I was able to get that, because my mama wasn't really able to give me money on my books and stuff like that. So when I was in the county jail, I met a chaplain who sent me money the whole time I was there. Really? She really went to bat for me. And so, her and her husband was very nice to me. They made sure that I had boxes and everything.
Wow. Have you stayed in touch with her when you got out?
I have. Her husband is deceased now, and she's, very, very elderly, but I stayed in touch with them. I went to visit and everything. Yeah. Uh-huh. I will always be indebted to them.
Okay. So let's take ourselves to that day that you expected you call it your death day, right?
Yeah.
Is that how you refer to it?
Yeah.
Wow. Just to have that in your life, that you have a death day. You woke up and you said, okay, Sabrina, today is going to be the last day of my life. Is that what went you through your mind?
You know what? When my death day came, I actually thought it was like TV. You know how the guy comes down the hallway and they have this chain and you got this suit on and you got the preacher walking beside you, and that's actually what I thought it was. I thought they was gonna come down and they was gonna, take me down this hallway and, and he was gonna read me my last whatever. And that's what I was looking for. And every time that they would open the doors and, let other inmates out down the hallway, I would jump and I would keep pacing and forward back to the door, trying to see, was it my turn and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, that was horrible. That was horrible. I wish I could run, but it was nowhere to run to, nowhere to get, nowhere.
So at what point did you learn that that day was not going to be your death day, and how did you find out?
Well, it was a girl next to me that was also on death row. It was two of us at the time on death row, and I befriended her. And how I did that was we had a toilet between the walls, and we used to get down on the floor and use that as a telephone. So we would talk, and we met each other like that. And she was the one who told me that they couldn't kill me because I hadn't been back to court yet. No attorney told me that. She told me.
And she was right.
Yeah, she was right because she had already been through her death day.
Is she still alive?
Yes, she's still alive. Yeah. Wow. She got off death row and they gave her I think 45 years. So she should be getting out soon though.
Do you correspond with her?
Yes. I help her. I've been helping her since she's been in there. She's lost a lot of family members and she really don't have anybody. So, I call her my sister. So I've been helping her since she's been in there.
So what was that feeling when, nobody came to your cell and said, Sabrina, today is not your day. You didn't have that experience.
Nobody said anything. Nobody came down and said nothing. I just was panicked the whole day.
It was all based upon... Can you imagine
how that is, though? You panic the whole day and nobody's talking to you. Nobody's saying anything. So I didn't know what, I just was listening for everything because I didn't know what to expect until the day passed. I panicked the whole day.
Yeah, Did you panic the next day? I mean, you're basing it on someone on death row, what she says. I mean, it's not like she's in power or a legal scholar, right? I mean, you're just hoping she's right.
Right.
But the next day they could have knocked on your door too. I mean, theoretically, right? And said,
I don't know, but I was just glad the day passed. They didn't do anything. So I felt like, I was okay,
Wow. It's just unimaginable,
I mean, I can look like I'm looking right now today and I can kind of smile, but that day I wasn't smiling. You know what I mean? It was one of the worst things in my life, besides losing my son. You know what I'm saying? And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, for nobody to have to suffer that, because that is torture to your mind. It's very much torture, and being innocent on top of that.
And still, you're not exactly sure what happened to Walter at this point, right?
I didn't know. No, still didn't know until I got the second attorney, who came to the prison to sit down and talk to me and let me know that he was going to be my attorney and he was going to be the one that arguing my case in the Supreme Court. And he sat down and talked to me. Okay. And that's what you have to do.
So that, I mean, did it give you hope, or did you think?
It gave very much, because I mean, he talked to me. He met me where I was, and he was honest. He was truthful.
And this is like the first time you had that.
The first time I've had it since I've been going through it. That's right.
It's incredible. It's incredible. It's such a injustice from every step along the way for you.
But once my sentence was overturned and I went back to court, when I got out, Mississippi decided to give me compensation, but they gave me what they thought it was worth. They knew they'd done wrong. They knew it. They knew they were wrong, but they still gave me what they thought it was worth.
Do you mind if I ask how much they gave you?
$300,000. But to me, that's no money. Life. The reason why I say that is because my daughter has kidney disease. When you're dealing with kidney disease, that's expensive. Medical bills for me and her, that wasn't anything for me to live off of. What could I do with that? And had to take care of her and my children too. That wasn't anything for me.
Okay, so let me just back up a little bit. You met with this new attorney. He explained to you that there was all kinds of misconduct and that you had a very, very good case to appeal, right?
Right.
And he prepared a case to appeal, and this was, I believe, to the Mississippi
Supreme Court.
Supreme Court.
Right.
Did you appear at that? Did they allow you to appear or testify?
No, he argued it. No, he argued it without me.
Okay, so you knew that this was going on, and yet it was another day or several days for you just to sit there waiting for what your ultimate, outcome was going to be, right?
Right. Well, I sat there 2 years and 9 months before I knew that my sentence had been overturned. They didn't overturn it till 92.
Did you have, it's almost, I'm almost ashamed to ask this question, but were there times ever in prison while you were going through this where you laughed? Was there anything that was entertaining or funny, be it this woman that you shared death row with? Did you laugh together? Was there any relief?
Well, the good thing about me being on that sentence at that correctional facility, they gave us most of the stuff that A custody had, because at the time it was only 2 women on death row and they didn't know what to do with us. So they did let us have a TV in our room, and we even had a crock pot. And so I was able to watch TV, and I had paper where I could write, pencils, stuff like that. So, I mean, it wasn't all bad. You know what I'm saying? That's what kept me going, because I could watch TV.
What was your favorite TV show?
I could watch TV show,
watching? What's that?
Yeah. What'd you say?
I was asking what your favorite TV shows were.
I like the what's his name? Jesus. He sits on the couch with his hand in his pants. You know what I'm talking about.
All in the Family?
Yes. What was his name?
Archie Bunker?
No, not Archie Bunker. Not him.
Fred Sanford?
Who? No.
Fred Sanford?
Dog, I can't think. Al Bundy, yes, Al Bundy.
Oh, Al Bundy. Okay.
Married with Children, yeah, that was my favorite show. I couldn't wait because I mean it was so funny. You know what I'm saying? And back then, you know, I really liked that show, and he kept me going because he didn't care about nothing. You know, you seen how he was nonchalant. You know, he sit on the couch with his hands in his pants, and the daughter, you know, they. I just like to find stuff to keep me laughing. You know what I mean? I tried to stay happy. Yeah. You know, because I felt like that, you know, that kept me going.
So we have another visitor, Sabrina. Her name is Elizabeth Lobman. Elizabeth, hi. Thank you for joining us. How are you tonight?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for having this weekly. I do try to attend pretty regularly, but
Yes, I know. And we very much are appreciative of your joining us. This is a pretty incredible story. Is there something you'd like to ask Sabrina or an observation?
Comment and ask. And thank you, Sabrina, for sharing this. It's so intense and powerful, and it's hard to listen to. I just, you know, I think most of us in this room are in this room for a reason. And as an empath, I'm reliving those years with you. And I'm just so sorry you had to go through that. Nobody should have to go through that. Partly why it's of interest to me is I'm a licensed social worker, a mitigation specialist in a homicide unit in New York City at Legal Aid. And it's a 2-year-old unit. We're in our 3rd year where we just focus on homicides. So I have about a caseload of about 24 men and 1 woman who are accused of homicide in New York City, in New York, one of the 5 boroughs. And I'm assigned their case from arraignment to the close of the case, and probably afterwards, because I do maintain correspondence with my clients post sentencing. So it's a new enough unit that none of my clients have gone to trial yet or taken pleas, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I'm just thinking of your story, and if you had only benefited from having a team like I work with, which we have investigators, paralegal case handlers, 2 to 3 attorneys assigned to the case, and then 1 mitigation specialist.
So Elizabeth, I'm hearing from you that you're sort of amazed by how little support and structure and government intervention in this case actually occurred. I mean, it was
not just
very quickly.
Sadly, not amazed, because we're talking about the 90s and Mississippi and the construct of race. So I'm not really amazed. I'm saddened. I'm disappointed, and I'm angry. And I have a realization how special it is that I work at a place and in a city that recognizes the need for this. So that's sort of where I'm going with this, is like, because I just got a teenager last week, and sadly, it's so much of this is on film, so is on video. There's videos on the streets, in front of the laundromats and the buses. So it's not a case of off usually where the person is innocent, but they still deserve the representation and the support. And why I wanted to why your thing is resonating, your story, is just when you meet, I have a 17-year-old from last week, a new case, and he's so scared. He doesn't necessarily use the word "I'm scared." And I think of you as being a 17, 19-year-old teenager. So the question would be, well, one is I meet them weekly. Right now it's on video due to the fact that I meet him weekly at Rikers Island, or in his case, at the juvenile facility. And I just do like wellness check-ins, touch base. But in the meantime, I'm preparing, going to teachers, to their family, to their neighbors, friends, putting together, mostly unsuccessfully, bail applications. We have gotten a couple people out.
Elizabeth, ask the question.
Okay, so I guess when you were a teenager, and is there any advice that you would think as a person in those shoes that you can give us? I think we do a pretty good job, but you can give us for for when we go and meet a new client, how can we show, our support, and what can we do for them?
Well, the first problem with, for me was that I was never talked to. And when I did get talked to, they didn't believe me. I feel like you should meet the child where they are. You know what I mean? Instead of just saying, not giving them a clear, because I didn't understand anything. Being that young, I really didn't understand what they were saying. Like I said earlier, I thought the right to remain silent meant be quiet until spoken to. So I really didn't understand my rights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
What would you give, Sabrina, what if, I know you don't want to go into prison, but if someone, for example, a woman who was facing her death day in prison, what, if any, advice could you offer, or how to sort of get through it? Is there anything, any wisdom that you have to share from that?
That would be hard to tell somebody. You can tell somebody something, but if they see, they're in it, they might listen to you a little bit, but they're, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to say, I don't want you to worry because you're on death row or you're getting ready to get killed. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's really going to listen to you. The only thing I could say is that I prayed. I just had to have faith, and I could not let any negativity cloud my judgment. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing I know to say, because you're stuck. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you could do.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing you can do.
There's
didn't
nothing
offer
you can do.
A minister or a priest or anybody to come pray with you or talk to?
They didn't
or
give
anything
me
like that?
anything. I had them solely on my own. I didn't give me anything.
Wow.
Nothing.
So
when
what
my death
was
day
it?
came, nobody talked to me. Nobody said nothing.
Amazing.
Nobody came to my door, nothing.
That's a crime. So when you got the word, or how did you get the word that they were overturning the case and that you would be freed as a result? Was it your lawyer who contacted you? Was it
It
the
was my
warden?
lawyer.
How did that happen?
I got a call from the tower to come to the tower. And so when I went to the tower, my lawyer was on the phone, and they told me to pick up one of the phones, and then I picked it up, and Clive told me that my case had been overturned.
And what was your immediate reaction?
I was so happy
feeling?
I didn't want to go back in the cell. I started yelling and screaming, and I was so happy because I thought it was over. I thought it was over. I was running, I was like, oh man, I'm going home. That's the first thing I said. And, I ran down the hallway where my friend Susan was, and I was screaming and yelling and telling her and stuff. I'm not going back in this cell. I'm not studying these people. That's what I was saying. And she was like, Sabrina, go back in your cell because the K9 come down here. They gonna do this and they gonna do that. And I was like, I don't care. I'm not going, And I kind of ranted and raved for a little bit and whatnot. But then I quickly came to my senses and went back in my cell because I didn't want to get beat up. So, I did. And it was shortly after that they sent me back to the county. But I thought my case was over. But
why did they send you back to the county?
I ended up sitting in the county jail 3 more years before I even went back to trial.
So wow. So they overturned the sentence, but they had to retry you. Is that what you're saying?
Right. They had to retry me. Right.
Right.
And so the district attorney kept putting it off. He kept putting it off on purpose for 3 years before I even went back to trial.
Did you testify on your behalf at the retrial?
I didn't have to. Clive didn't want, because he felt like he had all the evidence that he needed. He didn't want me to take a stand. Right. So,
and there was a jury who heard the case?
There was a jury.
And how long did it take them to come back with a verdict?
1 hour.
1 hour?
Yep.
Wow. So you must be asked this 12 times a day. Why isn't there a movie about this? Why, why isn't this a bestseller? Your story is just
right now,
amazing.
I've declined the movies because I am working on the second part of my book, and I don't want the movie to come out before the book. So I'm working on.
So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. So you went, 3 years in county again, which is no picnic, but this time, at least probably people knew that, you know, it wasn't such a clear case that you were a baby
Right.
murderer like when you were first there.
Right.
And you know, you're just waiting for your day in court, and then finally it happens, and it happens quickly. And you know, did you, I can't imagine that you wouldn't have all these emotions simultaneously, where you wouldn't be sobbing and laughing and angry and happy all at the same time.
Well, what happened to me, Richard, was kind of weird, because when I went back to the county jail, it was a different atmosphere because I was much older. Everything looked smaller to me, but I was much more advanced and much more prayed up, and my faith was strong. So when I started going through trial, the night before the verdict or before I went to court, I started giving away all my stuff. Everybody was looking at me like I had went crazy. But I got this sense of feeling that this was it. I finally figured out what God was trying to say to me. And I just knew, and I had an unshaken sense that this was it. I did. I had something come over me to know that it was over. I had already done what God wanted me to do. And so I gave away all my stuff, and I was right. When I went to court, I walked out the next day. I walked out the next day.
And what, so did you see your mom, or were your kids there, or, you know, what was that about?
When I walked out, when I first went through this, it was news, media, and everything. And they was talking about how bad of a person I was. When I was exonerated, it was only one camera lady there. And she was trying to talk to me, and I didn't have anything to say. I wanted to get to my oldest son, and that's where I went. When I first got out, my son was 9 years old. So I went straight to him when I got out.
And
my oldest.
And where would you go to live at this point?
I had a friend too. I went to stay with them until, you know, until I could get myself together.
Okay. So I got to ask you, what was the first thing you ate when you got out?
Honestly, I don't remember. I do know I binged on TV though. I watched TV like I was crazy. I think I've 30, 40 hours. I wanted to see every movie that came out, and that's what I did. I think my eyes was big as boat dollars by the time I got through watching TV. I was so freaking happy, but I can't remember what I ate. I think I just ate a lot of stuff, but I was worried about that TV.
I remember when in prison watching TV, you're watching.
I didn't trust anyone. And it took me about 10 years to be able to get to the point I'm at now.
What point is that?
Where I don't care. You know, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, you like it or not, you know, and I'm going to let you know why I'm here and what God got me to do. And I'm going to do it till I can't do it no more. And that's speak out.
Are you bitter for what you went through? Are you bitter?
I used to, but I'm not anymore. Because bitterness, it hurts you. It doesn't hurt them. It hurts you. So I can't live my life like that, Richard. I just can't. I live my life in bliss. Baby, I enjoy myself. I like the trees. I like to plant. I like to grow vegetables. I like to do it all. I have fun. I do not sit here and waste my life away. I don't. I try to do as much with my kids as I can do. I've loved dogs. I've got 3. I just try to have fun.
Of course, your daughter has some of those congenital health issues that Walter had. Yes. So I'm sure that's high on your priority.
Reason, right, it is. That is one reason why I don't enjoy negativity. We can't have that because she needs me right now. And I got to be powerful and strong for her. I don't want her to see me down because that doesn't help her. But she's fighting for her life. You know what I'm saying? And that, you know, to be negative and all this kind of stuff about what happened to me, it doesn't mean anything to me when it comes to my daughter. Because her life is
a lot of people would say you have a right to be negative and bitter and angry.
But I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. She needs me. She needs me.
Well, all right. You know, normally every week I do something I call my rant, where I talk about something that's really sort of pissing me off for that week. And there's always something in the criminal justice space to be pissed off at, always. But listening to you and you tell your story, I can't imagine, to me, it would be disrespectful for me to talk about what's bothering me after you talk about the beauty and the love that's in your heart and how you've taken control of your life and not given an in to all the negativity and bitterness that, you know, anybody would, you know, obviously give you a pass on going through what you went through. You know, do you ever stop and just sort of look back and go, my God, like, what did I go through? Like, what a life it's been?
I do it all the time. I'll be like, God, man, you took me through it. Why so hard? God, it's so hard. Why did you do that? But now I know. I understand. Because he knew.
So what's the answer? Why?
Say what?
Why? What's the answer? Why did God put you through?
He knew that I was strong-willed, and he knew that I wasn't going to give up. He knew I wasn't going to shut up. So he had to do something strong to get my attention, and he got it. He got it.
You got it.
He got it.
Okay. So yeah, and you got ours. That's for sure. You know, so I guess that's the whole point here. You mentioned that you're writing a book, or the second part of it.
Yes.
What's the book title? Do you have a title for it?
Yes, it's Exonerated: The Sabrina Butler Story.
Very simple, straightforward.
Yeah.
And if they made it into a movie, who would play your part?
I really like Tiffany Haddish. I really like her. She's so crazy. I like her.
You relate to her.
I like her, and I also like what's the one that plays on I forgot her name right now. It leaves me. I can't think of her name right now, but I like her too. I just my brain.
When do you think you'll finish the book by? When is that going to happen?
Actually, we've been working on it now almost 2 years because it takes that long. Because we're having to make sure that we give people the credit that's due, that saved my life, you know. And so we should be through with it, and it should be going to the publishers.
Wow. So you have a publisher lined up?
Already, yeah. Yeah, because I had the first book published already, but I put it on hold because it didn't have everything in it, all the new stuff that has happened.
Yeah, the good parts.
Right.
Yeah, thank God for that. So tell us the work that you're doing. You have an organization that you're involved with, right, that specifically has to do with exoneration.
Okay.
Can you tell us what that is and how people, maybe if they want to support it, how they could go about doing that?
Okay, you go to www.witnesstoinnocence.org, and it's all death row exonerees, and you can see all the speakers besides me. There's a lot of us. There's 2 women in the United States. I'm the first woman to ever be exonerated in the United States, and then Deborah Milky.
Let's repeat that. I'm sorry, but that's worth repeating.
Okay.
You are the first woman that's been exonerated and taken off of death row in our country's history, right?
Right.
You're certainly not the only innocent one who's gone through it, though, right?
No, I'm not. It's 180 of us, death row exonerees now, and that's alarming. That is alarming. So that lets you know that there's mistakes in the justice system.
Yep. So in that work, you say you do speaking. Where do you speak? What do you try to accomplish?
What we're trying to do is change legislation where the justice system is concerned, not only the death penalty, but to try to gain awareness. We also, within Witness to Innocence, we have an accuracy and justice unit, and we go and speak to prosecuting attorneys, judges, police officers, where they hope to set integrity units across the country. They started it already, but you know, that's the guys that look at the other guys. You know what I mean? So we do a lot of that. I just had an event today, and we go to colleges and churches and just wherever we can go. Anybody that will listen, we're there.
Yeah. not only is it important, but you tell the story so well, and it's so real and honest. I could just sit here, forever and just, I mean, there's a lot of wisdom that comes out, that again, all I'd like to do is give you a hug and tell you how sorry I am you went through what you went through, because nobody should, and sorry for your loss of Walter. I'm just looking at comments here.
Thank you.
I think you've made a bunch of fans. Sabrina, you're amazing. Sabrina, I'll buy your book. Sabrina, you're going to take care of business and fix the system. You're a warrior.
I'm trying.
Does that make you feel good, or are you embarrassed by that?
Well, kind of embarrassed a little bit. I just hope that, by me being able to speak and people to hear my story, that it changes things. That's all I want for others that's coming after me. I hate to see anyone go through this. I don't care what color you are. Nobody should have to go through this type of torture. And as long as they change it, I'm happy. And I feel like I did something.
Well, I feel like you did something too. And I think maybe there was a whole purpose to this. And I know you touched all of us. Diane, who is a friend of ours, and always has something smart to say. She just put it very, very simply. So proud of you.
Thank you.
And I am proud of you, and I'm humbled that you came here and joined us, and shared what has to be just incredibly awful, horrible experiences, and do it and still end with a smile on your face.
Thank you.
So that's going to be about it for this episode of The Yard. We're getting amazing guests who are hearing about this and joining us. Last week, we did The Yard on Clubhouse, which is a big deal social network that's become very popular. And we had Freeway Ricky Ross, who is an interesting character. He was a huge drug deal, ran $1 billion drug business, and yet one of the most humble people I've ever met. And his story was very, very interesting. But we have some great people coming up. We have some very well-known music industry people and hip hop artists that you'll be familiar with that are going to be joining us. It'll be very funny to see how I, an old white guy, will be able to have that conversation. So I'm totally going to embarrass myself. I say that in advance.
No, you did.
Thank you. We're avoiding doing it on Clubhouse. Clubhouse gets a big crowd, true, but there's no intimacy. There's no video. You can't see. You can't smile to each other. It doesn't feel nearly as human. We have an app that's coming out, Commissary Club. It's a mobile app. It'll be out over the next couple of days, believe it or not. And it's really great. And our goal here is to connect people with records. There's so little connection. People don't talk to each other. They're not available to help each other, and I'm one of them. We need each other to get through this and to learn from and to be inspired, like stories that we're hearing tonight. So please go to commissary.club, tell people with records, let us know what you think. If you or someone you think would be a great guest on The Yard, I know this is a tough act to follow. Sabrina, you've set the bar very, very high. But nonetheless, if somebody thinks that they can join us, please let us know. Let Adrian know specifically. We have a crowdfund campaign that's going on. We have hundreds and hundreds of people who have, invested little amounts, big amounts. We do this as a business. We do this as a business because that's way it's sustainable, and we approach it aggressively. We're looking to change the world, and we're also looking to create a path to financial success as well for everybody involved. So that's at republic.co/commissary.club. Check it out. You can see what we've done as a business. I'm very, very proud of the work we do. We've helped thousands of people get jobs. And when people have jobs, they don't get in trouble. I am beyond appreciative about you, Sabrina, and the work you do. Adrian put up the URL for her organization, and I'm sure if you go there, there's a way of getting in touch with Sabrina if you'd like. So please do stay in touch and help and support this amazing woman and her amazing work, because her story, unfortunately, isn't the only one that's out there. So that's about it. Once again, thank you everybody for joining us. You guys are great and you do my heart good. And again, Sabrina, thank you so much for coming. And I hope we can see you again. And, you know, you did my heart good tonight. So thank you for that. You really touched it, as you did everybody. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.